Hello, everyone. It would seem like a moth to a flame you were drawn back here. So, I invite you to take a seat and warm yourself by the fire as I tell you some stories of what might be lurking just out of sight. Let us go back to 1966 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Two gravediggers doing their job and going about their night. They look up and see a black figure flying overhead. Not knowing what to think about this, they shrug it off and go back to work. They had no idea that this was the first credited sighting of a creature that is considered to be a bad omen, and it is widely debated on whether it is evil or benevolent. Many have heard of the cryptid known as Mothman, but how much do you actually know? Between 1966 and 1967, at least 100 people have reported sighting this creature, with many more suspected to be too afraid to report anything. Most of the sightings describe a flying figure that looks like a man, about 6 to 8 feet tall, with its color varying between brown, white, gray, and black, with an 8 to 15 foot wingspan, and of course, its iconic glowing red eyes, which have been described as red like you never saw red. One explanation people came up with was the effect that light has when it shines upon an animal's eyes. Another explanation was that people were seeing a sandhill crane that had just wandered outside of its migration route. A sandhill crane is a bird about the size of a man with a 7 to 10 foot wingspan and red circles around its eyes. However, with what happened on the night of December 15th, 1967, I think they ruled this out. On that night, multiple people spotted Mothman flying over and sitting atop the Silver Bridge, which is a suspension bridge that connects Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio. That night, following these sightings, the bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. And the cause of the collapse was a fracture in the suspension chain. To this day, it is widely speculated that Mothman either caused the collapse or was there to warn everyone of the impending disaster. Since then, people have reported seeing Mothman just before other disastrous events. Some of note, of course, being in Chernobyl right before the reactor blew, and in Japan just before the 2011 tsunami. The story may originate in Point Pleasant, but Mothman has been sighted all around the world. In Point Pleasant, there is an area that is believed to be the home of Mothman, or at least his origin point. It is known as the TNT area, and in World War II, this area held an ammunition manufacturing facility. This area reaches more than 8,000 acres, and for safety reasons, any explosives were stored in bunkers, which are scattered throughout the area and disguised under a thick layer of dirt. After the war, however, this area was mostly abandoned, with part of it converted into a wildlife management area, and the other part into a landfill. By no surprise, it was discovered in the 1980s that the area was severely contaminated by explosive byproducts, and was then added to a list of federal hazardous waste sites. The bunkers were still holding thousands of pounds of unstable material, and even as recently as 2010, one that still held 20,000 pounds of material exploded. Still to this day, people will go to this area hoping to spot the Mothman, and it is not without reason, with one of the first sightings, and of course one of the most famous sightings, being right around here. A few days after those gravediggers spotted a figure flying over them while at work, two couples were driving home after a double date, and they were driving through the TNT area. Suddenly, they stopped, spotting a figure shuffling around there, near the abandoned munitions factory. It looked like a very tall man, with no head or arms, with huge wings tucked to his side, and two beaming red eyes. But curiosity quickly turned to terror as the being spotted them and took off into the sky, flying towards them. In a panic, they sped off, trying to outrun their pursuer. But no matter what they did, it was able to keep up with them, making a screeching sound as it seemed to just glide behind the car, not even needing to flap its wings. However, as they got closer to the populated town, it landed and shuffled off back towards the TNT area. Not believing what they saw, and thinking the police wouldn't take them seriously, they decided to go back towards where they first saw this being, and see if it would appear again. To their shock and horror, they saw it, again, shuffling around the brush near the munitions factory. The couples went straight to the courthouse and told this story to the police. Upon hearing what had just occurred, the deputy decided to go back with them to the area. And while they were there, they heard strange noises, saw strange shadows, and saw an unexplained dust cloud. There was a newspaper article printed shortly after documenting this event, and many members of the town of Point Pleasant stormed the area, trying to hunt down whatever it was they saw. After the story was printed in the newspaper, and the name Mothman was given to the creature, sightings increased around Point Pleasant, and many people claimed to see a tall, man-like creature with huge wings and glowing red eyes. The police had estimated that over 1,000 people were looking for Mothman each night. One resident, while at home late at night, claimed to see strange patterns appearing on the television, which was followed by strange sounds outside the house. Upon investigating and shining a flashlight in the direction of the disturbance, there were two glowing red eyes staring back, shining bright in the darkness like a reflector on a bike. This sighting is rumored to have led to the disappearance of this resident's German Shepherd. Another resident claimed a Mothman flew into their child's room when they were 6 months old, and they had to fight it off to save their child from being taken. Another got a bit closer to Mothman than usual, and immediately all they could feel was an overwhelming and sickening sense of dread. However, they were left unharmed. Now I know, one person seeing something leaves a lot of room for skepticism. But there are reports, much like the first two, and on the bridge, where multiple people have seen the Mothman at the same time. The group sightings, again, are of similar figures, flying overhead. There was one instance where a group of people encountered the Mothman while visiting family friends. This figure was described as man-like, with huge wings, and a head and a neck like a bird, with the neck going down and in. According to one of the witnesses, it looked like it was just standing there, relaxed, and waiting for someone to walk up to it. These were just some of the numerous sightings that followed the first newspaper article. However, after the bridge collapse, residents no longer wanted to talk about the Mothman, with stories and sightings disappearing. Being linked with disaster, it was a bad memory and a painful thought for a recovering town. Until the movie came out. The Mothman Prophecies was a book that got a film adaptation that came out in 2002. It was a story that depicted the events and sightings leading up to the tragic bridge collapse. Point Pleasant decided to go with the publicity, putting a statue of Mothman on Main Street, which, at the time, was equally liked and hated, which is very understandable, given the history. The statue wasn't the only thing that was created in 2002. The Mothman Festival also started around this time, and it only started out with 2 card tables, one selling a book about the events, and the other selling hot dogs. This was a humble start to something that has grown to have over 10,000 people in attendance. Mothman has become a huge part of Point Pleasant's economy, with more and more people visiting, hoping to see him, or, at the least, they could get a Mothman pizza or some Mothman cookies and go visit the Mothman Museum. The museum houses the original articles, eyewitness documents, and photos from the first sighting all the way up until the bridge collapse, along with a lot of the original props and memorabilia from the film. It also doesn't hurt that they have a bunch of merchandise and souvenirs. Even if you don't see the Mothman, you could leave with one of your own. Many different descriptions of the Mothman have been circulated, the range of which is remarkable. Some depict close resemblance to a demon, while others say it's a huge moth with legs. Despite what depiction you have heard, or seen in art and media, Mothman has become one of the most well-known cryptids out there, and has one of the biggest influence on the darker side of pop culture. References to Mothman can be found in television, movies, video games, artworks, merchandise, and even music. And out of all the legends out there, Mothman has had one of the farthest reaches, probably only beaten out by Sasquatch. Mothman makes appearances in a good amount of video games. In the Shin Megami Tensei and Persona series, he appears as a creature to help you in battles. And in the Castlevania series, he appears as an enemy. However, in most recent years, he is most notable for his appearance in Fallout 76, which is a game that takes place in West Virginia and leans heavily into the supernatural tales that call that area home. There is a Mothman cult, you can find Mothman eggs, you can even visit Point Pleasant, and the Mothman Museum is right there. But the best part about this appearance is how they handle the actual creature. Mothman can show up as the Wise Mothman after a side quest and give you an experience boost for a short duration of time. Then there are the versions that stalk you during the game, and sometimes you turn around just to catch a glimpse of them before they vanish, leading you to question what you actually saw. Honestly, if there is anything good about Fallout 76, it is Mothman. A lot of media seems fixated on Mothman. Numerous books, shows, and films have been made to document sightings and talk about the impact of the bridge collapse. All of them will say something along the lines of what I have already told you, but they all say it in their own way. The most saturated area of this impact comes in the form of merchandise. And no, I'm not talking about the Mothman Festival that Point Pleasant puts on. If you just look up Mothman merchandise, you will find artwork, plushies, clothing, statues, figures, and pretty much anything you can think of. Yes, I do mean anything. The world is fascinated with Mothman, and the love for this cryptid continues to grow. Whether it's cute Mothman or demonic Mothman you were looking for, I can guarantee you'll find it. The internet is plentiful in Mothman. And there you have it. From his humble beginnings, this is where the Mothman is today. Now there are still sightings, and recently a bunch have sprung up around Chicago, with multiple people stating they have seen Mothman, with sightings being mostly at night near bodies of water. Some people do believe that this could be a subspecies, and that there are many other variations of this creature. But some people also believe Mothman to be an extraterrestrial, with all the odd occurrences that were going on within Point Pleasant around the time of the initial sightings. There are even some people that believe Mothman is an ultra-terrestrial, which is a being that originates here, but is ancient and way more advanced than we are. However, what you believe is up to you, and I always encourage doing research and letting curiosity lead you to learn new things. Mothman is a great introduction to the world of cryptids and legends, and is the first of many that I will be telling you about. Please let me know what you think about Mothman in the comments below, and also feel free to tell me about your favorite legends or cryptids as well. And as always, remember to like the video if you did enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when the next audio log comes out. And until then, whoever each and every one of you are, stay safe and stay curious.